Hello, and welcome back to Futuretoons. For those unfamiliar, this is where we explore the intersection of retrofuturism and animation by looking at past depictions of the future seen in cartoons. Today, we are going to be looking at what the future was like when I was a kid, 2000's Titan A.E. Now, this episode is a crossover with our Patreon series Future Film, which is similar, only looking at the future according to movies. We do not run ads, we are 100% viewer supported, and in exchange offer a ton of exclusive content, like Future Film. So, if you like what we do and want to help make it happen, please consider supporting us, patreon.com/pixandportraits. With that plug out of the way, let's get into Titan A.E. This film was released in 2000, Y2K, the turn of the millennium. What exactly was the state of futurism around the turn of the millennium? This was, after all, the fabled year 2000. For years, this year was synonymous with the future, and finally we were there. While we may not have had flying cars, the future promised in the previous decades was closer than ever before. Advancements in computer and communication technologies connected us via the internet. Looking at predictions from around that time, we see a lot of familiar tech, early smart homes, remote operated appliances, consumer-grade GPS, cell phones, wearable tech. Everything was digital. In the late 90s, we had just gone through the hysteria and paranoia around the Y2K bug, which we have talked about before, the fear that the tech we've programmed is fallible, or that it could possibly turn on us. This paranoia somewhat undercut the optimism of Millennium Futurism, but in 2000, the future was largely still pretty bright. So yeah, that's the world Titan A.E. was conceived in. Before we get into the film itself, I'd like to look at who made it. Titan A.E. was directed by former Disney animators Gary Goldman and Don Bluth, who led an exodus from that studio to form their own, Don Bluth Productions, in 1979. Their first production was the short Banjo the Woodpile Cat that same year. They followed this up in 1982 with their feature-length debut, The Secret of NIMH, based off the book by Robert C. O'Brien. It very much follows the Disney playbook. Original songs, anthropomorphic animals, lush traditional animation. Due to stiff competition, mainly from E.T., The Secret of NIMH was not the most financially successful film, at least on release, but it did prove that full-length, Disney-caliber animation was possible from a studio other than Disney. NIMH's initial poor performance caused or contributed to Don Bluth Productions filing for bankruptcy. There were other factors, like an animator strike. This was in response to animation being outsourced by American studios to studios in Korea and Japan. I couldn't find a whole lot on this, but many animators worked at Bluth Productions, something like 100 or over 100, and this was an industry-wide dispute, so it's no surprise they were affected. After the bankruptcy, Don Bluth Productions was reformed as the Bluth Group. In 1983, they collaborated with video game developer Cinematronics to produce the animation for their games, Dragon's Lair and Space Age. I want to spend a little bit of time on Space Age because it's got some great retrofuturistic aesthetics. It follows a Buck Rogers-like hero as he tries to stop an alien from destroying Earth, which ties in a bit with Titan A.E. Like Dragon's Lair, it is basically an interactive cartoon. Players are prompted to hit certain buttons to trigger a series of traditionally animated cutscenes. While the games were not the most exciting to play, their visuals were far more detailed than any other games at the time. They were successful, but the video game industry crashed. Cinematronics passed their financial difficulties down, and the Bluth Group once again filed for bankruptcy. This time, the studio was salvaged by Morris Sullivan, a corporate mergers and acquisitions broker who just happened to love animation. This group eventually became Sullivan Bluth Studios. In 1984, the studio was approached by Steven Spielberg to produce a film about a family migrating to America, which was realized as An American Tale. Hugely successful movie. It was followed by The Land Before Time 3 years later, and the absolutely devastating All Dogs Go to Heaven in 1989. Spielberg and Bluth's collaborating ended there due to creative differences, which is the same reason Bluth had left Disney years earlier. Spielberg formed Amblimation, which gave Bluth and Disney even more to compete with. At the time, Disney was ripe for competition. For nearly half a century, they had ruled feature-length animation, but throughout the 70s and 80s, Disney was struggling. Their movies were flopping, the magic was seemingly gone. That changed with the release of The Little Mermaid, which opened against All Dogs Go to Heaven and absolutely destroyed it, and in the process ushering in a new era of Disney animation, the Disney Renaissance. The early 90s were a boom period for animation between the Disney Renaissance, Nicktoons, the launch of Cartoon Network. We were eating good. Sullivan Blue Studios, however, struggled to gain a foothold. They would produce films that continued to bomb until the studio folded in 1995. On account of their success, improving that Disney could be competed with, Don Bluth and Gary Goldman would be hired to create a new animation studio for Fox Animation Studio. In 1997, they released Anastasia, which was Bluth's first financial success since An American Tail. Anastasia spawned the direct-to-video prequel, Bartok the Magnificent, and in 2000, Fox Animation Studios produced its and Don Bluth's final film, Titan A.E. As a reminder, we are not here to review the film itself, but instead the future presents. Still, a quick plot synopsis. Titan A.E. starts in 3028 when the Dredge, a race of aliens, attack and destroy Earth. Some humans manage to flee Earth into space colonies. The story picks up 15 years later, and humans are all but extinct. Kale, the son of a researcher who worked on the secret Titan project back on Earth, learns he holds the key to finding Titan, thus saving humanity. He teams up with different factions who help or attempt to impede his journey, so a pretty interesting setup there. The AE stands for After Earth, and we see humans struggling to adapt to new environments outside of their home planet. Again, they are an endangered species. This is a rough future. It's not pretty. Lots of junky spaceships, space bikes, levitating hospital beds, holographic maps, and interfaces, which is pretty standard sci-fi fare. I think it's really easy to compare Titan A.E. to Futurama. A different tone, obviously, but both were produced around the dawn of the 21st century and take place at the dawn of the 31st. Both were traditionally animated with some CGI flourishes. Both feature an eccentric cast of various alien species. Both have humor, heart. Even looking at the leads, Leela and Akima, tough, purple-haired pilots. Fry and Kale, outsiders transplanted into a world they struggle to understand, traveling to a bunch of really cool environments. This is a gorgeous movie. Some effects haven't aged well, but it looks great. I think the soundtrack dates it more than anything. Power Man 5000, Jamiroquai, lit very much of the time. This was not a successful film. It bombed and brought the studio down with it, but it's a pretty cool future. Given that it takes place 1,000 years into the future, it's hard to say what Titan A.E. got right, but around the time the film was made, what the future was changed. We saw earlier the digital revolution. It was going to make our lives easier, and it did, but for so long we looked ahead to tomorrow with hope. However, shortly after this film was released, that optimism gave way to post-futurism, which was the subject of a recent Sleepcore. Whether due to climate change, disease, or war, most discussions of what is to come now end with the notion that there is no future, and humans' days, at least on this planet, are numbered. With the early scenes of the movie, the panic in the spaceships leaving, the idea of a human diaspora measuring time in years after Earth, I'd say that Titan A.E. created a pretty interesting and convincing future. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and be sure to check out some of the other videos in the series. We are pretty deep into the holiday season, so I'd recommend checking out our look at Futurama's Xmas episodes. Again, pretty similar to Titan A.E. You can make my holiday merry and bright by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/picsandportraits. We're going to be looking at 12 Monkeys in the coming weeks on Futurefoam. $5 a month gets you access to that and dozens of other videos and series, and helps keep these videos coming out regularly. So if you have the means, please consider supporting us. Patreon.com/picsandportraits. As always, thank you so much for your interest in this channel, and thanks for watching. See you in the future.